Welcome to another episode of Cadence Fishing TV. It's the start of the coarse fishing season and we're fishing on the River Wye. And this is my first decent fish that I've hooked this morning. It's an absolutely glorious morning, as you can see, and I was so excited to get fishing this morning. I think it's a big chub. I can see it fighting in this turbulent water below me, so I'll just concentrate on landing it and then we'll talk a bit more. Oh, it's actually a barbel, not a chub. I started on caster and just changed over to meat. I've actually set 2 rigs up today, and I caught 2 small chub on the caster, and I just thought I'd try the meat, give the meat a go. But it's slowly tiring. It's not a massive fish, but in this turbulent, powerful water, it's really fighting. Yay, and we've got it. Nice one. What a beautiful way to start the new season. Have a look at that one. I'll just see if I can hold it up for you. And I'll carefully hold it over my landing net. It's a beautiful, sleek barbel. So powerful. It looks like it's spawned because it's quite lean, but it was a certainly lean, mean fighting machine. Let's revive it carefully and get it back. Well, I'm into another fish straight away, and again it's difficult to tell what it is, but I've got a feeling this is a chub. It's not fighting as fast as that barbel, it's a bit more dogged, so this might be a decent chub. You can see the swim I've selected is just below some rapids and shallow water, and the flow kicks over to our bank. It's very, very strong on this side. A lot of the time when you're fishing on rivers in the early season, you'll find that the fish will be near the shallow water because that'll be where they've spawned. I'm just going to try and play this fish and get it just upstream of me so that when I lift it for the net, it should hopefully drop downstream into the net. Yeah, it is a chub, and it's a nice big chub as well. There we go. It's not easy fishing in such fast, powerful water like this, but it's absolutely thrilling fishing. And this chub, it's really rough, so it's got its spawning barnacles on it, but again it looks like it's spawned. So wow, what an absolutely pristine chub. It's got to be 3 or 4 pound, that one. It's absolutely immaculate. I had 2 or 3 more trots with nothing, and I'm now into another fish, and I'm sticking with the meat at the moment. It seems to be working better. I've got a bigger float on. It's a 4-gram Avon style float, and I'm actually catching the fish just on the edge of this turbulent water. It's the sort of peg that would be almost impossible to float fish in the main sort of flow and power of this river today, because it really is powerful under my feet. And I think we've got another barbel here, the way it's fighting. It's not as dogged as the chub, it's fighting hard and moving upstream, which is normally a good indicator of a barbel. But it's interesting, it's taken me a bit of a time to work it out today. I think you're always full of expectation and excitement when you're fishing for the first time after the close season, and the fish don't always play ball early on in the season, but it's just great to be finally back on the river and battling with these beautiful fish. I find it often the case in the summer when you're fishing rivers like the Wye, where there's a lot of different types of fish, including smaller fish like dace and roach. When you're targeting bigger chub and barbel like this, you do sometimes need to fish with bigger baits like meat. I shall keep trying the caster as well, but at the moment I see no point in changing from using the meat. Well, I still haven't seen the fish, and as you can see, it's really fighting hard in this powerful water under my feet, but it's showing the action of this rod absolutely beautifully. This is our CS10 14-foot number 3 rod. It's the most powerful rod in the 14-foot range. But you can see how it's bending beautifully, but it's got so much power and strength. It's absolutely perfect when you're fishing on rivers like the Wye and when you're targeting big fish like chub and barbel, but also on still waters when you're fishing for big fish like carp and tench. Anyway, I'll shut up for a moment and try and get this barbel in the net. I'm going to try a different tactic with this one and try and net him in this slightly slacker water below me and below Monty, because it feels like I'm constantly fighting the flow when I've got the fish out in front of me. Here it comes. Another similar sized barbel, but don't they fight? Does not want to give up. Another one in the net. Well, that's what I've been waiting for after such a long, hard winter and close season. I love catching chub and barbel on the float on the river. The bait I've brought with me today is I've bought 4 pints of hemp, 4 pints of casters. I've got a couple of pints of maggots, and I'd chopped up 2 cans of meat. So I think I mentioned before, it's a great idea to have a variety of different baits when you're river fishing, particularly when you're targeting bigger fish like this, just so that it gives you the choice to work out what's the best bait and feeding tactics on the day. I have used pellets for chub and barbel on the float on rivers, but I found it very difficult to fish and present the pellet when you're fishing in fast water like this. I think when you want to fish the pellet, you're much better off ledgering or feeder fishing. So pretty typical sort of river feeding tactics today. I'm feeding fairly heavily with hempen casters, and I've got a mix of about 50% of each, and I'm just putting the odd cube of meat in as well. So I've got a good stream of hempen casters going through the swim 2 or 3 times every cast, and the odd piece of meat. And so far in this session, the meat's definitely been best. The fish seem to be almost searching them out and with it being a big target bait, I think they get into it quite quickly. And I'll obviously vary the quantity and frequency of feed depending on how the fish respond. But I think it's fair to say any type of float fishing on a river where you've got a pacey swim like this, you need to be feeding at least every cast, and probably more like 2 or 3 times a cast, just to get the fish feed in, and also probably help fool them by tricking them to take your bait. I mentioned I've set 2 rigs up, and the rig I'm using for the meat is a Dave Harrell alloy Avon, and it's 4 gram, and I'm fishing it with 5 AAA shot bolt and then a group of number 8s bolt together as a dropper. And it has taken a bit of working out this swim due to how turbulent and powerful it is, and this is definitely the right float to be using at the moment. I think it's a great tip that Billy Lane put in one of his books about bossing the water. The float's got to boss the water, and that's definitely the case on a swim like this. I think a lighter float would just be pulled all over the place and would be almost impossible to present in this turbulent water. The other rig I've set up is a shallow water stick. Again, it's a Dave Harrell, and it's 5 number 4. And my intention was I was hoping to try and catch some fish in the slacker water just past this main flow. So it meant that I could present baits like hempen castor and maggots very nicely, with a bit more finesse really than this bulked Avon. But at the moment I haven't been able to get any fish feeding in that slack water. But it's just often the way really when you're river fishing, particularly if it's a new stretch or a different peg that you've never fished before. You've got to take the time to work it out, be prepared to change your float and use different shotting patterns to work out what's best on the day. So the fish I've caught so far on the meat have been all caught from the same zone, and it's an area just past the main sort of turbulent boil channel there and about halfway down my peg, which is great because especially when you're fighting fighting fish like chub and barbel, I don't want to be catching them too far down the peg. So I'm catching them about halfway down, and that must be where a lot of the feed is landing, and that's where they're feeding. And I thought I'd just explain a bit about how I'm controlling this Avon float today. You can see that I'm just simply underarming it just past the main flow, and because the river is pushing really hard, I can actually control the float very nicely. These Avons have got a lovely shoulder on them, which just enables me to really lean into them and control the float. And what I'm actually doing is I'm holding the line, I'm trapping it between my fingers, and I'm just gently peeling the line off the spool, so I can actually regulate the speed of the float and control it perfectly, almost like I'm putting that meat hook bait right into their mouth. And obviously you can experiment with that. Oh, and that was definitely a bite. I saw the float go and the line behind it, so I missed that one, but it just proved it, that by slowing the bait down, I suppose at the moment I'm fishing at about half the pace of the actual current. I'm presenting the bait at the right speed for the fish, because a lot of the time you've got to get your, well, all the time really, you've got to get your hook bait acting like the loose offerings that you're feeding. And if I was just to simply let the float go at the speed of the current, I'm pretty sure I'd catch next to nothing. And that's nearly always the case when you're river fishing, because the water at different depths will be moving at different speeds, and that's why it's critical to slow the bait down, because the water that's moving near the river bed will be significantly slower than the water at the top. Well, I think that's the biggest chub so far of the day, and that one's definitely over 4 pounds. Even Chappy admitted it. So it is proving to be a challenging peg to float fish, but I'm absolutely loving it. And by constantly adjusting my depth and shotting pattern, hopefully I can keep these fish coming. And you can see from the bank that it's a very rocky bank, and that's what's creating this very turbulent swim. So I think certainly in the main channel the bottom's going to be very uneven, and then it's sloping up to this gravel run that's opposite us. So it does pay to, when you fish a new peg and perhaps at the start of the session, have a good look at the swim and just imagine exactly what's happening, because that will give you a head start really in working out where the fish are likely to be caught. Well, I went 10 or 15 minutes without a bite on the meat, and I decided just to change my hook from a size 10 that I was using for the meat to a size 14 and just try 3 casters on the hook. And I think it was second trot down, I've been rewarded by another fish that at the moment I'm still not sure what it is, but it's fighting more like a chub. Tried to snag me up on the far bank, and that's a good point really. When you're playing big fish like this on a river, on a powerful river, you need to keep the pressure on and keep the fish moving, because if they find some weed, they'll pretty quickly snag you up. And it's another lovely big chub. Got a big massive mouth. Look at him. Brilliant. So a change in bait definitely fooled that chub. The hook I'm using is a size 14 carbon feeder, so despite the name, it's a hook I really love for when I'm fishing for big fish like chub and barbel on rivers, particularly when I'm using maggots and casters. And there we go. Another battleship of a chub, similar size, 3 to 4 pound. Literally next chuck on the caster I've had another chub, not quite as big, but still A lovely fish. You might have noticed when I was playing the fish, I had to fight it with a hard angle to the left, put a lot of side strain on because the chub was kiting out. It's not too far to that weed where the river really shallows up, so I was having to really pull the fish away from the weed and work him upstream. I'd only just nicked him in the top of the mouth as well, so that hook did a good job. Guess that one's about 2 to 3 pounds. You can see he's a bit tatty on some of his fins and on his flanks where he's probably been spawning in the gravels and damaged himself, but they do heal really quickly, and I'm sure we'll be back up to perfect condition in no time at all. It's important to keep trying and changing different hooks and hook lengths, and on a day like this when we're catching such powerful fish in such a challenging swim, you do really need to step the gear up. So I'm going to give that a go and see if it has any effect on the bites. I've also spent quite a bit of time adjusting the rig to see what's best, and interestingly I found that having the bulk about certainly 2 foot, maybe 3 foot away from the hook has been better today. Maybe it's just made it's got the bait down in this turbulent water and then made the hook bait act more naturally. I don't know, but it's definitely been better than having the bulk closer to the hook. So there you go, you can see I've got the 5 AAA shot bolt together, and I've actually got 6 number 8 shots grouped together in that mini bulk. I could spread them out and give a better presentation, but I think certainly in this turbulent water I need that bulk, that double bulk, to help keep some control on the hook bait anyway. But let's have another go and see if we can hook another. The fact that I'm using 0.19 or 4 pound line catching chub and barbel like this might surprise some people, because you perhaps would expect to be using a heavier line like 6 or 8 pound. But the problem with using a heavier main line when you're float fishing is it can really jeopardize the presentation. And a good reliable reel line like Pro Gold that I'm using today, it's just surprising how much pressure and power you can put on the fish with a 4 pound main line. It's very rare that you get bust fishing with a match rod like this and 4 pound line, so it's worth thinking about next time you go float fishing and you're targeting bigger fish, not to fish with a main line that's too thick and that will make presentation really difficult. So another key factor today has been getting the right depth. So as well as the shotting pattern, I've constantly changed the depth because the depth varies so much as you go out across the river and also down the river. And you can obviously find out how deep it is by constantly going deeper until your hook bait drags on the bottom. And it's really a fine balance between getting the depth so that it's deep enough to get down to the fish, but not too deep so that your float keeps dragging under. And on this peg today, that's been different in different parts of the swim, so I'm constantly adjusting the float. I'm now fishing a bit too deep, so I guess I was fishing about 5 foot deep, and I'm just going to shallow up to about 4 foot deep to fish just in that main channel where I've been catching, to the right of the very turbulent boily water. I'll keep feeding some bait a bit further over in the shallower water because I'd really love to see if I could catch some chub over there. It'd be much easier to catch them in the slower, steadier water than in this very powerful turbulent water. Well, those adjustments seem to have helped, and I'm into another barbel. Well, I assume it's a barbel. It's fighting really well, and it took quite a lot of line off me initially, so barbel do normally make a good run like that. And this does feel like a better fish as well, so initially what I like to do, certainly when I know it's a barbel not a chub, is just try and get the fish under control and slowly start to tire the fish out just by using the action of the rod, by keeping a really good bend and curve on the rod, just to make the fish constantly work against the rod and the flow of this powerful water. At the moment it's right over by those weeds, so I'm having to keep some pressure on as well to keep it away from the weeds. Barbel are curious creatures really, because it's not very often that they, well, I don't think they deliberately snag you up. I think they kind of just go into it by mistake. And that's the exact opposite to chub, which will absolutely nail you in any snag or any weed that they possibly can. Definitely hugging that weed on the far bank at the moment, and I'm having to pull as hard as I dare with that 4-pound line. I'm definitely glad that I stepped up and fished straight through. There we go, he's starting to come upstream now. Just by keeping steady pressure on and not doing anything too erratic, we've got him out of that danger zone and he's starting to come up now. They sometimes even swim past your barbel and go upstream. But it's just a matter of just being patient and taking your time. It's great when you're using balance tackle like this with a great action rod. You start hearing that line singing. It's just the best, really. So exciting. It's amazing how these fish can fight so hard. I've still not seen it yet, so I've got no idea how big it is, but it's starting to win the fight. And oh yeah, I've seen it. It's definitely a bigger barbel, this one. So I'm going to just keep fighting it in the main current. When I think it's just about had enough, I'm going to swing the rod round and try and net it in that slack water below me. Nope, he doesn't want to come yet. So even when you're fighting a hard fish like this, you want to keep the feed going in. So if I get a chance like that where the fish is just holding nicely in the flow, I can keep the feed going and hopefully keep the shoulder fish happy in my swim. And he's coming up, and we got him in that slack water. He didn't like the look of the net, but hopefully we'll get him on the next attempt. Not ready yet. Can't believe how much this rod's bending, but it's got such power and such strength. So essential when you're fishing with balanced tackle like this and catching decent barbel. There we go, we got him. Just about got him in my landing net. Absolutely superb. Well, I'm wishing I'd bought a bigger landing net. That's the biggest barbel of the day. Another spectacular fish. That one's, I'm going to say £7 for that one. I think in the winter when it's in full condition, it's probably going to be £8. It's a lovely long fish. Well, this is another chub. And I changed my hook bait to 4 red maggots on the size 14 hook. And as you can see, the chub once you've got them out that initial sort of danger period when you first hook them, they're so much easier and quicker to land than the barbel. It's almost like they just sort of give up when you've got them under control, but that one's thrashing about in the net. And I think with that beautiful chub, we're going to call an end to this session. It's been absolutely fantastic. Just brilliant to get back out on the river and fish afloat. Absolutely awesome. Well, what a fantastic session that was. I've really enjoyed myself today. Hope that inspires you to go out and do some float fishing on your local river. Thanks for watching.